So today's topic, I'm just going to call it, again, pure innovation and entrepreneurship. Again, to pick up with what we just talked about, the difference between entrepreneurship and innovation, right? And we've already talked a little bit over the past couple of weeks about innovation, its relationship with productivity, the relationship between productivity and standard of living, and say the benefits from economic growth. So that's all innovation. Then the question is, what about entrepreneurship? And what is its role there? All right, so pure innovation and entrepreneurship, what we want to just go right to is talking about the market process. All right, the market process. We'll go ahead and put down three main points. When we talk about market process, we want to first talk about knowledge. Some people would also add information. I'm just going to stick with knowledge for right now. Value and exchange. All right, so those are just three basic aspects of a market process, right? And so when I say pure innovation and entrepreneurship and the market process, what I mean by pure is we're just going to ignore all these other things that can take place through the channel of, say, what we call rent seeking or lobbying, special interest groups getting together and try to get some sort of legislation passed that helps their cause or whatever it might be. We're going to just try to ignore that for now because that adds a layer of complexity that we just don't want to think about for this purpose, right? So we're going to think about, in entrepreneurship, when you think about the way we've defined it already and talked about on the first day, the second day, we're talking about somebody comes up with an idea, they want to make it successful, what do they have to do, that type of thing. So we're going to ignore those other channels, right? We're just going to say, you've got something. I read somewhere, or somebody told me something about an example of businesses, buy something cheap and sell it for more money, right? Just pure and simple, okay? So say that's pretty much all you can do, right? And then we just ignore all those other aspects that are out there and available to help us. For one, it's very difficult for a typical person to, once he has an idea, to really go to that level, right, and start lobbying for benefits or anything like that. So we just want to ignore that for now. So let's talk about how this really takes place. So let's focus on knowledge, all right? Knowledge. When we start getting into one of our readings, and I've already mentioned it in here, it's this idea that no matter what you're doing, career-wise, or if you're into starting your own business, whatever it might be, there's no substitute for the knowledge that you have about what you're doing, right? Above all else, you must know what you're doing, right? So knowledge. In terms of entrepreneurship, where does knowledge come from? What is something? Let's start with let's just come up with an example and just kind of follow it. How many of you are in here right now? Who has thought ever, or since taking this class now, has thought about maybe starting their own business? Okay. Give me an example of what type of business.
Mine is, I'm in the works right now, is basically an a la carte, kind of like paralegal services.
a la carte paralegal services, okay? So I know what a la carte is, I know what paralegal is. So tell us what your...
Well, basically, with the economy the way it has been going, a lot of lawyers and companies and even some government entities that hire paralegals to do paralegal work,
Right.
Have had to let a lot of them go. It's too expensive for a young lawyer starting up to have a staff of secretary, paralegals, and that sort of thing. So my company, and I've got some models that I'm basing it on, sort of like LegalZoom, but more personal.
Okay.
Where basically they hire me and my company out.
Okay.
Let's say they need a legal brief written.
Right.
They would pay for just that.
Okay.
That's it. They don't have any overhead. They don't have to worry about insurance or anything like that. They just hire me to write the legal brief. I write it, they review it, they accept it, they pay for it. That's it.
Okay. All right. So let's now we're all in here. Okay. Let's say we're all part of this team, and we're helping create this this new opportunity. We're going to turn this into a reality. We're going to make a go of this business. Okay. So we all have different skills we bring to the table. What do paralegals do historically? What is the role of the paralegal? Maybe it's a few things, but what's the main thing?
An analogy would be the nurse to the doctor.
Okay.
They do almost everything that a lawyer does, other than a few things like giving legal advice, actual straight up legal advice, going to court, obviously, and things like that. But we do a lot of the prep work. We do a lot of the research. We do a lot of the writing.
Okay.
Most of the writing.
Okay, so two things you mentioned right now, research and writing. And that's stuff that comes to my mind when I think about paralegals. I think of, to really help us all, how many people are planning to go to law school? Ever thought about it? Okay, one, maybe another, okay. But law school is something that people think about from time to time. We know what lawyers do, right? Or we think we know what they do, at least. Generally, we associate some type of monetary value to being a lawyer, that type of thing. But they do a lot of different stuff, right? So, paralegal, there was that movie where I think it was, I forget the lady that was in it, but she was a paralegal, or became a paralegal. No, she was a paralegal, right?
Aaron Brockovich?
Yes, Aaron Brockovich, okay. Was she a paralegal?
I think she became a
paralegal, okay. What did she do that made her realize, I want to be a paralegal? I might as well be because it's what I'm doing. What was it?
She was good with people.
Good with people.
She could read them. She could research about them.
Research. She did a whole lot of research. That's what I remember about the movie, right? She researched this thing until she knew more than the attorneys that were trying to help her out, right? On this one topic, and that's possible. Anyone can become an expert on a particular thing if they're passionate about it, right? She was passionate about it. That in the movie you see pictures of, she is spending days and nights, pizzas, wine, whatever, just really just living and dying this topic and learning as much as she can because she was passionate about it. That's all I remember. I don't even remember what the movie was about. I don't remember what the thing was. But that was paralegal type work, research. What today has made research more capable for some group outside of the company to do it and help them where they don't have to do it in-house? What did you used to have in-house? And so you needed...
the law library.
The library. You had the law library. So the paralegal would spend their time in that library, in the office building, right, doing research. Pick this book up off the shelf, go through these cases, right? You really had to be there. So how would you have somebody in some other location doing that? And doing it for a bunch of other firms. Every firm had to have their own library and their own research staff.
LexisNexis.
Yes.
All the other tools.
We have, yeah, exactly. So today, somebody can have access to all of that same information, and they can be anywhere in the world, right? Even if there needs to be face-to-face time, you can minimize that. You could have teleconferences, video conferences. There's all different ways to communicate where you don't need to be there. So let's say knowledge, right now, we know that we can jump to information. Information is more widely available, right, for a very, very low cost. You do not need to buy 10,000 books and have them in there, right? And all these journals, you don't need that stuff, right? You can get a lot of it online, certainly legal code books, just a lot of information online, and certainly specific things that just help the background information of the case. So we can see clearly, we can all understand right now, in terms of just focusing on knowledge, which research, the purpose of it is to build knowledge about a particular subject or topic or event or action, anything like that, right? So knowledge and information. And then we know now that with this example, you don't need to be, you can see why law offices could start to think about maybe subbing out paralegal work, right? Okay, so now let's talk about, let's go to the next one, value. Okay, so first, before we go to value, that's our next step. It's got to be there. But first we've got knowledge, we've got this innovation, right? We've got innovation from the outside, so externally there's been innovation over time that we have. It's helping all kinds of different businesses that have nothing to do with paralegal work, right? Just the innovation. So now we're taking it and applying it. Our attorney is first thought to apply it to something that he's familiar with, right? And he sees this opportunity to apply this innovation, other innovations, to something that now he's going to innovate, right? He's going to provide a service that maybe hasn't been available in an area, something like that. There probably are examples of subbing out or outsourcing paralegal work, right?
Oh yeah, it's not a new business.
Okay.
It's not common. People still tend to the old-fashioned
right.
hiring staff.
Certainly, because what do we know about, let's take a legal business, a law firm, right? What's the average age of attorneys in a law firm, the partners?
50, yeah.
Okay, let's just say 50. We know my age. How good am I with technology? You've seen, not very good, right? I can use it for my own purposes. Research, I'm good with it, right? But everything else, so if I'm an attorney, a partner, 50 years old, that means I probably started when I was about 26, right? And if we go back, it's almost 25 years ago. What year was it? 25 years ago. Where are we?
80s, late 80s.
Okay, we're in the late 80s, late 1980s. What was technology like in the late 1980s? How many people were carrying around their own laptop everywhere they went, or an iPad? No, not existent.
They had like really big desktops.
You had a suitcase cell phone.
Yes, the cell phone was this giant thing, right? The movie Wall Street, you know, this big thing, right? Nobody had
First
one.
Motorola.
Yeah, nobody had a cell phone, really. That was definitely an exclusive type product for people that really had a need for that thing, or an extreme luxury, right? So just with that communication was different. So much has changed since the 1980s in terms of technology and how it would be useful to a law firm, right? So the idea, though, that, and think about just force of habit. The idea of a law firm where the paralegal isn't in the next room and the books are in the next room and you can just run over and go ask them a question, the idea that that's not even necessary anymore is probably difficult for some people to accept, right? There's a certain, I don't know if the right term is romance, right? But it's kind of a
symbiosis.
Yeah. There's a picture that we kind of enjoy thinking about, you know, about the law firm of years past, right? People, you know, libraries is a pretty, it could be a comfortable place. People are comfortable in one, you know, and information's there. You just know it is. You just gotta figure it out, right? Read it. That can be comfortable even. You can see how people can spend hours and hours and hours researching something, and then before you know it, they're way off topic, right? They've just gone into stuff that doesn't even matter anymore about their original topic, but you can see that going on. So now we have the question, the law firm, high cost, right? It's a small business. There's no question it's a small business for the most part. What are they dealing with today in terms of labor costs?
What do you mean?
A typical small business.
Insurance.
Insurance, right? You hire somebody, you've got insurance to deal with, right? We also just had, so the timing of this type of business, the new healthcare law, right? It's called PPACA, right? Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. That's going to affect small business in a certain way, right? Okay, so the point is, it's very expensive to have employees. If you don't need employees for certain things, would you consider maybe outsourcing the type of thing? And then what does that do? Is that some people would lose their job, right? We call creative destruction is a reality, right? Creative destruction. We take an old model and we blow it up, right? And we create a new model. So it could be that people now, they work for paralegal firms if they're interested in that kind of work. And it's a whole different type of business, right? They might rarely ever see the attorney that they're actually working for. And it might be many different attorneys, right? On many different projects. And maybe they'll just specialize in a particular type of law that maybe a few attorneys all over the world specialize in, and they're helping them out from thousands of miles away, right? You can see that type of thing happen. And you can have paralegal firms that just turn into 1,000 employee firms, right? You can see that actually happen, right? And supporting a lot of different legal offices all over the country. Right? So, then first, to convince that you've got this idea, you've got the capacity, you've got the capital, you've got the subscriptions to different legal databases, all different things. Now you've got to present to a law firm this idea of value. What would cause somebody to say, okay, I can let go of this type of work that I'm doing in-house. Or maybe it doesn't even start that way in the beginning. Maybe you have that going on, but there are certain things just, you realize we don't have the capability to do this in-house, right? We don't, for whatever reason it might be. So they might still hold on to a paralegal or two, right? There might not be any laying off from the beginning. It might just be through attrition over a 10-year period. Those people finally retire, and then they realize after they become comfortable with this service after 10 years, wow, we actually don't need to hire anybody else because we can do it all with this company. So in the beginning, they might not do it all, right? It might be you present some services and some particular types, and they say, yeah, so they buy one here, one there, whatever. Because what was some of the products? Let's talk again about the products. So we have to build the case for value for this company, right? And we've got to make sure that the potential clients or customers see that. So what is the case for value? What are the products or services you can go and offer a law firm that, let's just say, is really, this is the first time they've thought about really doing this, and they're just not sure about it?
Like I said, research is writing your citation, which becomes important.
Okay.
You cite a case, and by the time you get through researching this case, it's been overturned or something like that, so your citations have to be on the spot.
All right.
And that's a big value right there.
Okay.
Because paralegals spend a lot of time researching, and then they go, like you say, go down the wrong path.
Yeah.
They'll realize this case has been superseded.
Okay.
So if you show that you're up on that, that's very valuable to them.
All right.
And there's taking what you call interviews, client interviews, notation, things like that.
Right.
Just so many different things.
Okay, all right. So you can almost have a menu of services that you can offer. And one law firm might see that one right there would help us. Why? Maybe because that's a weakness that the partners recognize, right? You know, we kind of struggle with that. And so that might be something that they kind of jump at, right? And so in terms of you creating value for this law firm, what do you have to know about the law firm? Can you just go and shove it down their throat and say, this is a valuable service. You need to use this service. I don't know why you're doing things the old way, right? No. What are you going to have to do?
You need to know whether there's a need in that law firm for such thing. You go in and you just look around. If the guy's operating out of one little room with just one person in the front desk, most likely he needs that help.
Right, right.
You know, you can just look for, and you can just look at the name on the door and know you got 4 names on the door. You can already know the size of that firm.
Mm-hmm.
The reputation, local reputation.
Okay.
Conway's a small town. You can Myrtle Beach, small area. You can tell who the big wigs are.
Right.
And the
right.
law firms, and then the specialization, what type of law they practice.
Sure.
Over here, real estate law is big. So,
right.
I beef up on real estate paralegals. And you look at Craigslist. 6 out of 10 paralegals, if they're looking for, need to be real estate paralegals.
Okay, all right. So now we're starting to build some specialization, right? So specialization is certainly an important aspect of really productivity and economic growth in the world, right? This goes back to Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations. Specialization was certainly one of the basic components of economic growth and the source of the wealth of nations, right? And so with this value, you can see that you could present to a firm that you specialize in these things that they can't really specialize in unless they have built a real significant market presence in that one specific area, right? Now, you talk about real estate in Myrtle Beach. Real estate in Myrtle Beach today versus real estate in Myrtle Beach 6 years ago are two completely different ballgames, right? The construction boom, real estate boom in Myrtle Beach was big, big, big. A lot of law firms doing a lot of closings, right? Now, a lot of law firms are doing a lot of bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sales, all these different things. So even in real estate, it's changed a lot, right? Okay, so the specialization that you could present. So now, again, with the firm, though, presenting value, all right? You go to the firm, you still have to make the case to that firm. You recognize these things, right? You recognize a small firm. You're thinking they probably don't have specialization, right? They're doing a lot of jack of all trades is their paralegal stuff, right? And so are the attorneys probably. So you, who would you might want to talk to about what their daily tasks are and how you might be able to help them?
If they have paralegal staff, that the head paralegal or the office manager.
Okay, so the office manager, paralegal, him or herself, right? And so you start to build an understanding of this office, right? And you start to think about what they might need first and foremost beyond anything else. And you go back to in your head maybe, your menu of services that you can offer, and you think, which ones would attract them the soonest, right? And that they can see, you know what, maybe we could experiment with that. Next case that comes up with this type of thing. Or maybe we have some cases right now that, you know, depending on your fees or whatever it is, we can maybe use some help there, right? So now in terms of value, first what they're going to see is cost, right? So they're going to see cost. They're going to see numbers, dollar signs going out of the office, right? They're not going to get rid of their paralegals right now. They're going to have to pay fees to your company, right? So in terms of value, they see the cost associated with the value. The question is, what about the benefit associated with the value? Right? What do we have to show them?
You mean in terms of like experience and education?
Efficiency, maybe.
What's that?
Efficiency.
Okay, efficiency maybe?
Efficiency. I
So,
can have it back to you in a week, whereas your paralegal probably, because you got her doing 100 other things.
okay,
Probably.
so in a week, so now we have let's go to how do we measure value in a business? Just from an economic perspective. What is it?
Effort and time.
Profit. Let's talk about profit, right? So we need to look at what they're concerned with is their profit, right? They have to be. They have to make sure that they can pay all of their people, they can pay the bills, all these things, and they can also pay themselves still, right, going forward. So the minute we suggest a new product or service, what they first see is an add-on, and they see it shrinking their profit, right? So we've got to show them that that's not the end result. It's going to increase their profit. How do we show them? Yeah, go ahead.
How you would show them by doing that. The thing that you're doing, the service that you're providing for them, is going to make things cheaper because you're going to have to pay someone who was already doing that for you. You don't have to pay them anymore. So you're paying me, and maybe you could charge them, like, I don't know, a couple dollars less than whatever you're paying your paralegal now.
But let's think about how the law office works. Let's assume they're not going to get rid of their paralegal meter. You walk in with this product for the first time, they're not going to tell their paralegal of 20 years, go on, we've got a better service, right? Because you haven't even used it yet. They don't know that. It would take a long time to actually finally realize maybe that it actually replaces that individual completely, right? It might take several years. So how, given that that individual stays in this one, go ahead.
Maybe show how, like, if you're paying paralegal by its salary, the difference between paying for just a document or whatever that needs to be done, and how much time that would save them in the long run by like putting that strain on the paralegal compared to outsourcing it and being able to get it done fast.
Okay.
And
So if you can get it done faster, let's just associate that immediately with productivity, okay? What is productivity in a law firm? What's being more productive as a law firm?
Taking in more cases.
Bringing in more cases. More cases means more what?
Billable hours.
Profit, right? Hopefully, if it's done right, right? So now we can present the case that you spend a few $100s or whatever it might be on this service this time. Your paralegal doesn't have to mess with that, right? So we got to be open. We got to think about your paralegal skills, interests, strengths, right? Stuff they'd rather be working on versus stuff that they really hate to work on. That might be a conversation that the office doesn't really want to have. Maybe the paralegal doesn't want to admit that kind of thing, or whatever it might be, right? We're dealing with personal issues here, but if we can uncover that information in a soft way, then we can say, listen, the paralegal won't have to do this anymore, you know, and let's just say it's just somebody, but, and then these other things can be done with their time, right, that they're actually better at. Right? And so then we can start showing the case for higher productivity, more cases, less headache, and more profit for the firm, right? And then we can bring the case for long-term value. Long-term, more cases, but less labor time, right? And so the firm might be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but the number of people are the same, right? And that would be nice for that firm, okay? Your firm might be growing and growing and growing, right? With more people. Yours is a people-driven business, right? So we've taken the law firm, which maybe in the past was a people business, and now it's turned into a technology business with a few very specialized attorneys and paralegals, but not as many as was necessary in the past, or the capacity to do a lot more with the same number, while your business is all of a sudden growing and starting to hire people from all over the world to do cases not in that office, right? Okay, that's pretty interesting. So we've got this, we've got knowledge. We're starting to build the case for value, right? And next is exchange. Right? So we've shown knowledge, we've demonstrated value, but you're not making any money until exchange happens, right? So how do we get that to actually take place? What is an exchange going to look like for your business? Just give an example of one that you think this. We've talked about building a picture. Just pick a menu item and just talk about what this might look like.
Yeah, that's the difficult part. But let's just say writing a case brief where you review the case folders and you write a brief for the attorney. And then I guess that can be billable by word, by page, that sort of thing.
Okay, all right. And so attorneys, my limited information of how they do things, everything is billable time, right? Everything they do, there's time allocated to it, and there's a client that's associated with it. So it's billable time, billable time, billable time. So when you present this, they're going to, in their mind, think of which client that is for, how much time they're billing that client for, right? And so you're, in this exchange, your thing is probably going to be for a specific case, right? And they're going to know that they have a certain kind of budget in their mind of time they can bill to that case, right? And so if you charged, let's just say for a legal brief, how long in words or pages is a typical legal brief?
It could be as simple as a 2-page brief. It could be a 100-page brief, depending on the case, on the complexity of the case.
Okay.
And then the difference there too, there's 2 different rates. So you got attorney billable hours, which are going to be, the 300, 400
Sure.
an hour, and then you got your paralegal rates.
Okay.
A lot of times, the attorney could be charging at his rate, but he doesn't have time.
Right.
So the paralegal's rate is doing all the work, and that's not going to be as much, he's not going to bill as high as if he had written it.
Okay.
So, the more time he can spend on the case not writing,
Yeah.
he can bill higher.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's not so good that you're depending if they're paying on contingency or they're paying, just periodic billing. But sometimes they already know how much the client's going to spend. So the less time they spend on this case, the better.
Right.
So that's where the value comes in.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and so that's becoming clear. But when I asked the question about exchange, you're acknowledging that's the most difficult part, right?
Right.
And it is, okay? And so earlier we talked about the difference between innovation and entrepreneurship. We've got innovation, we've got the knowledge, and we've got the value. We can see that, right? The exchange is where entrepreneurship is going to come in, really, right? The market process is where entrepreneurship is going to, or let's say a higher level of the market process, right? In the beginning, the market process was in the marketplace. We know that there are things that we can use to obtain knowledge faster, research, information, that type of thing, present the case for value. Because we're observing the market, we're seeing things that are completely unrelated in the market, but we can put them all together. Now there's this higher level order in the marketplace that is most important for you actually taking this from an idea and turning it into a revenue-generating, profit-making entity or concern, right? Those actions are the type of knowledge that you want to. So now we've got this type of knowledge. Now we've got to bring in another type of knowledge that is going to help us figure out how to make this exchange take place. And then how to make it take place over and over and over again, not just with the same firm, but with other firms. Not in the same town, but maybe even other towns, right? But it could be that you don't even ever go outside of it. It might just be right here forever as far as you're concerned, right? So this exchange, though, taking place, dollars for service, right? You're going to have some cost outlay, of course, yourself. So there's exchanges that you're going to have that take place inside before you can get to the firm, right? But all these different exchanges that are a really important part of this market process, this is kind of, where the rubber hits the road, right? So in what way would you structure such an exchange? Go ahead.
Maybe having a website built where you could click on different things, like say you want a documentation, you click, all right, I want a documentation right now, and then it would have maybe another menu of different types of documentation, and then you can click on what's closer towards what you want, and then maybe they send in the information about what they need, and then you can easily, write them back with an email or whatever, and with, available pricing options.
Okay, all right, so you could build a website, which is going to help with your menu option, right? And so this is going to be probably a mix of person-to-person and then website, different things, right? So once an attorney kind of maybe is at least introduced to this idea, a law firm, then you show them you've got this website. Maybe that's even how you show it. You make the case, you bring in a tablet, right? And you bring up your website on the tablet, and you go through the menu up, and you have this already built before you even go in there. And go ahead.
Well, couldn't you just do like a discount exchange? Like say a paralegal at a firm gets paid $150 an hour to work on a case.
Okay.
Couldn't you come in and say, look, we'll do a case for you the first time for half of what the paralegal makes. So you do the first case for $75, and if you like my product, then you have to match that $150 on the next case.
Okay.
Couldn't you just do that as like a discount exchange?
Yeah, sure, that is an option, right? You can think about just immediately going with what they're going to see, how much they have to pay in time or give up in time for that rate. So you're certainly going to have to be very familiar with going rates for paralegal time, right? You're definitely going to have to, so that kind of knowledge also. You're going to have to know a lot about the legal business, the structure of it, the pay scales, the billable time and the rates, all that you're going to have to be very familiar with. Go ahead. Okay, gotcha. All right. So you're going to have to familiarize yourself with that, right? And so, the first exchange might be that simple. It's just simply a negotiation. It says, you're currently paying this much. What if we did it for you for this on this first one? We'll do the brief. You've got this brief. You're expecting it's going to be about a 5-page brief with so many citations, whatever. We're going to do that for you for half the price this time. okay? Just to get you familiar with our service, okay? And you're probably going to have to demonstrate that you do have that capacity, right? You're going to have to show them other briefs that you've done. You're going to have to show them resumes of your people that would likely be preparing this brief, right? So they know that they're not buying something that, you know, there's even people that go to LegalZoom, you know, it may not be attorneys that are going, you know, LegalZoom. So they expect a higher level of work, and they want to know that there is a person that has a certain resume that they can trust, right, that will be preparing this brief, and they're comfortable with using that in their preparation for court or negotiation or whatever it might be, right? All right, so now we're kind of building the case. We've got knowledge, value. We can see how we keep going back to knowledge for all these different things that are unrelated, right? There's all knowledge. That's why it's really the basis of the whole entire thing. Knowledge is where innovation and entrepreneurship spring from, right? Thinking, knowledge, transforming it, all these types of things. And then value comes from that only when other people can see it as something that they need or would like to have, and they would pay more for it than you've actually got in it, right? If that's not the case, why would you do it? You would never waste your time on something that somebody's just going to make an even exchange. You put this much into it, I'll give you that much for it. There's no business in that, right? That's all they paid for is your cost, right? They haven't paid for your time, right? And your energy thinking about this and putting this whole thing together. So they're going to put more into it than you actually have in it, right? So, unless we, of course, include opportunity costs from an economic perspective, right? That's going to be in there. So, we go to the exchange. And that, it does turn out, that is where the business is built. All this might be there, and it might take 1, 2, 3 years, and say you start this year, 4 years down the road, the exchanges have taken place much, much higher volume if it's been successful, right? It might even look different. Who knows what? So this is something that's going to have to be built over time that is completely separate from this up here in terms of the actual thing that it is and the value that it presents. This whole thing, once it becomes a business, is another thing, right? And then your business has to focus on all these ways that you can become more efficient, that you can, you know, create more exchanges for less output on the cost side, and start to build your own profit, right? Be able to hire more people so that each worker brings in even more, right? Not just what they're costing, but over and above that. And then the business builds, right? So knowledge, value, and exchange. All right. That's a good example to work with. So thanks for bringing that up. And I'll take this opportunity to talk about real quick. We do a business plan at the university every year. All right. We started it 2 years ago, so we've had 2. This will be the 3rd one this year. The one this year, we're partnering with a firm in Myrtle Beach called Cowork MYR. Cowork MYR is their focus is on kind of technology startups. It's a workspace. Where you can pay a membership of a few $100s a month, and you can use office space down there. Not like a cubicle, not just an office building. It's, for example, when you walk in the room, there's a 3D printer in the main area of it. A 3D printer is if you've got an invention for something, and let's just say it's a toy, and you've got CAD drawings, so somebody in software that they created these computer-aided design drawings, you can put them into this 3D printer, you hook up to it, it's got a certain material base, and it'll create a prototype for you. Okay, that's a 3D printer is. They've got one in there, so again, it's not a typical office space. It's and they have people that work there that are working on new startups, and it's a pretty interesting place. What the business plan competition will do is the winners will not only win prize money to help with the cost of their startup, they're going to win time at Cowork MYR and mentorship time also. And even though most of the businesses here at the college, businesses that we would come up with may not be technology startups, but most of them need technology, right? And there are people down there that are experts in software, website development. And so one of the cases they're working on is a young lady that has a business she's been trying to get off the ground and get really going for the past couple of years, I think it is. Well, her website aspect was not really optimal for what she was trying to do. And very quickly, somebody down there helped her with it, and this thing's starting to turn in a new direction because of the capacity they built into it that really was what she needed. She just didn't know what she needed, right? That turns out to be the case a lot. When people need a website, that's no easy thing for people who aren't technology people. You don't really know all the stuff behind it that you need. You don't know what it costs to search engine optimization so that your name comes up at the top when an attorney looks for paralegal services. All these different types of things, the menu options, how you would pay for something on your website, all that different stuff. It's a complex thing itself, right? And so you can imagine if you, assuming you didn't have any background in building websites, had to build your own website to get this business off the ground, how long would it take you to get your business off the ground if that was a crucial part and you had no idea how to build a website? It would probably be the thing that would cause you to never, ever get that business off the ground, right? And that happens a lot. So if you can just find somebody that can do that for you, figure out what that cost might be. Well, in this case, it might not be much of a cost. You win the business plan competition, you get some time down there, somebody, there's templates for these kinds of things. That's even changed a lot today. You know, templates that you can use and adapt to your specific business, doesn't cost a lot of money. And before you know it, you've got that part of your business, right? You can go in with your tablet and show your website, and that headache or that hurdle has already been crossed, right? Okay, so anyway, just to kind of put your mind in that direction about the business. We haven't even released the I guess the revised kind of call for plans, and it's not, really it's just ideas. We don't really need financial statements, that type of thing for the competition this year. We've kind of revised the whole structure of it, but it's pretty much an idea that you have that you're interested in pursuing and sharing with some other people and seeing if they can help you maybe get this off the ground, that type of thing. That's what the point of the business plan competition is. All right, so now let's go on to our first reading that we're going to start actually assigning some chapters out of is the book. And it's really about the creative process and how entrepreneurship is different than, say, going, the entrepreneurship in the traditional sense, than going and getting a job somewhere and being assigned a series of tasks that you can be creative with, but well, we're looking at the case where you are creating this thing, right? So an example of, say, your business, all right? So this is from the Gerber book, Awakening the Entrepreneur Within. That's the title of that book. It's one of the readings for this course. And the first thing we're going to look at is Gerber's 5 realities of the entrepreneur. Okay. I'll just put these down. The first one is inventor. The second one creates opportunity. And in parentheses, I'm going to put recognition and action. And as I write on the board and think that this is being recorded on photo booth and then it's a mirror image, again, I apologize. I haven't figured out yet how to reverse that. Reward. Number 3, the third one is the reward of exchange. With others. And I'm going to put this down as personal fulfillment. But it's also, if we just want to look into it from a hard economic perspective, this is where profit comes from, right? but it's personal fulfillment, really, first and foremost. Okay, and we'll talk about that. Fourth, success equals growth. And then fifth, entrepreneurs are made, not just born. Okay? So we're just going to kind of try to poke holes in the notion or the myth, what he would argue. People used to always say somebody's an entrepreneur just because they were born that way, right? You're just an entrepreneur. We're going to say that's not the case. Okay? So entrepreneur, let's say it can be a learned trait, all right? It could be a learned, if it's actions, if entrepreneurship is about actions, then learning it would be about learning the right actions, right? Learning the right way to develop something. And of course, some people have a better knack at that than others. And it could be nothing more than environment. Some people may have grown up in a household that is entrepreneurial, that has, the head of household might have been a business owner, might have owned many businesses throughout the years, might have gone from one, sold it off, bought another one, built things like that. Well, certainly if you grew up in that environment, it would almost seem like that would be second nature to you, right? If you didn't grow up in that environment, it's not the case that that's not possible to be your path, right? You can put yourself in that environment and start to learn that type of thing, right? Okay. Or an environment similar to that, right? You can't change your household, but you can go to work for someone, a small firm that is doing these types of things. You can become very good at doing these types of things with someone else who is doing these types of things, right? A lot of things you can do. Right, so the 5 realities of the entrepreneur. First of all, the entrepreneur is an inventor. And then this is from Gerber's perspective. This is the way that this individual looks at entrepreneurship. And we're going to look at it this way for now. Okay? So the entrepreneur is an inventor. Now, we're not talking about Thomas Edison type invention, invent ideas, whatever it might be. In the case that we use, Tony, with your example business, how would you apply inventor to that example?
Finding an idea that is not common, that it's not, you don't see every day.
Okay, all right. So you've taken, there's a service that's done in-house. You're going to create a way, so also create an opportunity for this service to be done outside of that business, right? And it could be that for this area, the service just isn't common, right? And you really invent it for this area. You bring it to this area, okay? And you help it become a reality in this area. So immediately we just jump to number 2, create opportunity, all right? And that's clearly what this business is doing, right? You're creating an opportunity. You see the opportunity. You're going to create this business, first a model for the business, but a business that can capitalize on that opportunity. And along with that, in parentheses, I've got recognition and action, right? So first of all, you recognize it. So the difference between an idea and a real opportunity, and then the difference between an opportunity and a cash-generating business or a profit-generating business is the difference between just the recognition and then the actions that have to accompany that, right? Okay. And we spent some time already with this example talking about exchange and that type of action, right? So for Gerber, the 3rd reality of the entrepreneur is the reward of exchange. And it's not very difficult to conceptualize that. When you have this business, you've got this website, you've got the menu of services, you go to a few different firms and you present your products and services, and you might do it 10 times. And then finally, you might have to follow up with 10 of them, right? And then maybe someone says, you know what? Since you were here last time, we got in a new case. I can tell that our staff is not comfortable with this case. Really don't think it's that difficult to me. They just don't have any experience in it. I noticed you were talking about this example when you were in here. I'm assuming you guys can handle this one. We'd like to purchase a brief on this case. And what are you going to say? Yes, we can do that, right? And then when you leave the office, what are you going to say?
Oh, crap.
Yeah, right. Oh crap, right? But there's going to be that balance, right? It's going to be, oh crap, I've got to do this, right? But what's going to be in your mind as you're driving down the road?
Yeah, but you got to do it.
You're going to do this, right? You came up with this idea 2 or 3 years ago, maybe, and now somebody is going to contract with you. They're going to use this in a real case, right? This is going to happen. That's a big difference from being a paralegal in somebody else's office and doing this type of work. So it's not that the thing that you're doing is right. It's that you've created this for yourself. This is an entirely new business, and you are selling this to someone else. They bought into what you're selling, right? They get it. They're going to do it, and this is the beginning, maybe, of doing this many times over and over and over, and helping a lot of law firms out there lower their costs, increase their productivity, bring in more business, while you, at the same time, are really building something for yourself, right? And for a lot of other people. Paralegals may be able to go and, you can imagine someone with a paralegal degree looking for an internship. It's a heck of a lot more likely they're going to find one with your firm than with a law firm, right? Your firm has all kinds of this work going on, and so you can see in today's age of high-cost small business, right, they can see where your business would be more than willing to bring in this intern and give them a shot at some of these things, helping out some of your other paralegals who might have so many briefs that they're doing, right? So it really be something, right? Success equals growth, the fourth reality of the entrepreneur. So you start from number 3, the reward of the exchange, and then think about multiplying that over and over and over and over, and that is your business growing, right? And that is, in terms of the definition of success for that business, and really for your personal fulfillment, you're doing this more and more and more and more, this thing that you created and were passionate enough about to actually get it off the ground, turn it into reality, start selling the service, build this company up, several employees, and it's just growing from there, right? And that's success for that one opportunity that you saw and made a move on. You recognized, acted on it, and now you can see some success, right? The fifth reality of the entrepreneur is that entrepreneurs are made, not born. All right? And so if you just kind of believe in that notion, right, and think about it, because there's a lot of people that don't believe in that, right? There's a lot of skeptics that will say, no, entrepreneurs are just really, they'll say, well, Steve Jobs, okay. Steve Jobs, we're talking about a rare case of somebody who created something that changed the whole entire world for the typical person, right? Well, not all entrepreneurs are Steve Jobs, right? But we don't all have to think about something like that to that scale. So in this small corner of the world where we are right now, entrepreneurship, you've got experience from industry that you've worked in, and you see an opportunity, and you're going to make a leap from, you're going to create a service where it's going to kind of change the way paralegal type work is done, at least in this town, right? And certainly, you do that, and 10 years down the road, you'd be recognized as a traditional definition of an entrepreneur, right? And that's all there is to it. So in order to see how you can do that, the first thing you have to admit to yourself is there are parts of the process, the knowledge, value, and exchange, that you don't quite know how to make happen, right? And it's really no different than with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and Apple Computers. In the very beginning, there were many parts of that process that they didn't know how to make happen, right? They certainly didn't see what we see today when we see Apple. It didn't exist, right? It was in a garage. And it was anybody know what that first computer looked like? Again, you guys haven't read Steve Jobs' biography, but that first computer, the story is I think he took, I forget how many, down to this shop that when I read it, I'm thinking of like a Radio Shack type shop, right? That sells things where you would think a computer might be sold, but again, remember, there weren't really computers that much. So when he took it in, what did the thing look like? And the shop owner that said, before he saw them, I will buy however many of these it was, 20, I cannot remember. Yeah, he he brought them in a box, and it was a bunch of different pieces that weren't even connected together, and it was something that only a hobbyist would even, it looked like something you had to build, right? I mean, it was like, you imagine if you brought somebody a computer today and it was a box with a bunch of jumbled up parts and screens, and you had to attach the screen inside and put the keyboard on and put the circuits in there and attach the cord with solder. Imagine somebody brought that to you and said, here's 20 computers you ordered. I'd say, well, what have you been smoking, right? And this guy pretty much said, who's going to buy this, right? And he said, hold on. This is what it is. All you have to do is, it was like a TV or something, a TV screen. So that was the monitor. It was a keyboard, and I'm not sure what else there was. But then he showed it. It's really not that big of a deal. This is what you do. So the guy was, he was not mad anymore. He kind of gets it. He says, okay, all right. But that was the first thing, and they really didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have any idea, right? And the story kind of goes, Steve Jobs didn't actually, he wasn't the code writer and that type. That was Wozniak, right? And Wozniak supposedly didn't have the interest in the market process that Steve Jobs did, right? So some people, I guess you want to say, maybe some people would call Wozniak the inventor and Jobs the entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then that shows that it doesn't necessarily have to all be one person. That is, an inventor and an entrepreneur has all this together. Very rare that that's going to be the case, right? Now, Steve Jobs wasn't stupid. He was a genius himself. He could write code. That wasn't his thing, right? He certainly was much more into the actual process, the art of business, right? When they put their two heads together, they created this thing, and they made it successful, and they talked to people, right? And that was a lot about what it was. So, in terms of being an entrepreneur, it was more about how can we make this happen? We know that people, what Steve Jobs recognized, what Wozniak was creating was really useful to a lot of people. It would be. Not just people who were just hobbyists. He could see. He had a vision that maybe others didn't have, that were really just into this for a hobby, right? And so that type of thing. So he saw what it could turn into one day. I'm sure he probably still didn't see what we have today. It's so different from that, and it's so long from that time. But there we have that. Okay, so start reading chapters 1 and 2 out of Awakening the Entrepreneur Within, and it has this information is in chapters 1 and 2. There are lecture slides I'll post on Blackboard, lecture 2 slides. Read through those. I'm going to put the Baumol 1990 reading up. Read through that, and I'll have a discussion post posted this afternoon, and that'll be due. It'll all be due Thursday by midnight. So in lieu of coming in here on Thursday, this is the stuff that you're going to work on for Thursday. All right, and then be thinking about. You already have for sure. That should be your class project in here. I would say, recommend. All of you need to start thinking about a class project where you're going to explore the market. All right, you're going to learn the market for this thing. And you want to pick something that you're really interested in first and foremost. And don't just think about what you're interested in today as a student, but tomorrow, 5 years down the road. Think a little bit out. Think about why you're in college, maybe 10 years down the road where you'd like to be, right? It's not to say that you're going to graduate and start this business. You're very likely, 99% of you are going to go get a job. Well, maybe you might think a little bit more about where you might want to get a job, what type of business. If it's something that's closely related to what you might want to really be doing for the rest of your life, think a little bit more about that type of thing, right? And see how maybe the class project in here can kind of help you in that pursuit, all right? Okay, any other questions?